Good morning, everyone. Again, I want to welcome you all and thank you all for your participation in the second annual Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration. We're going to start with a welcome remark and address from our fearless and courageous leader, Susan Gentili. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erin. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here. I'm happy to see so many of you as we celebrate the recent birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King's work was groundbreaking in his commitment to nonviolence, while also addressing systemic and individual racism head-on, and with a vision for a better world. It Starts With Me is the theme of this, our second annual event, following up on last year, where we heard about creating an inclusive path for planning and creating change by helping and standing up for one another and continuing to learn and examine how all of our experiences shape our individual perspectives. I'm happy to say thank you to our keynote speaker, Nick Walcott, for sharing his experiences here with us today. Thank you. And I also want to thank the SMOC Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee members who planned and organized today's event, together with the steering committee chairs, Rahi Wada and Yvonne Brown, and our Diversity and Health Equity Officer, Erin Young. Thank you, Erin. Thank you to the committee. Round of applause. A lot of work goes into planning this and pulling it off and having it all come together. And so thank you for all of that. Also, I want to say a big thank you to Darlene Asenko-Mazurek for emceeing our event today, and to Joseph Sawyer, who will sing for us a little bit later on. I'm really happy to see so many faces, and I'm happy that you've all joined us, and I look forward to sharing the rest of the program with you. And with that, I'll turn it over, I think, to Yvonne.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Yvonne Brown, and on behalf of the SMOC Board of Directors and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, or DEI, we would like to welcome you to our second annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration. Thank you for pausing from your busy schedules to join us. My co-chair, Rahi Wada, Erin Young, and the DEI Steering Committee have embraced the theme, It Starts With Me. This theme gives each of us a chance to be responsible and to play a pivotal role as a leader in our community. We are committed to enforcing and to enhancing the efforts of those advocates who preceded us. Trayvon Martin's parents quietly galvanized others into action. Larry Tye's book, Rising from the Rails, told how the Pullman porters gave rise to the Black middle class. Marian Anderson mentioned the irritation she felt from prejudice. The Delaney sisters wrote, Having Our Say. Dr. King said, I am a man. Langston Hughes encouraged us to have dreams. Each of us has a vision of what kind of world we would like to have. I'd like to suggest 2 exercises for you to do. 1, stand in front of a large mirror and take an introspective look at yourself. 2, then close your eyes, block out any nearby sound, and let your creative juices flow. How will you make a positive difference to advocate for justice, fairness, and equality? Are you willing to step out and lead or join forces with those who are doing so? Or will you make excuses? This multicolored towel is a product of individual threads that were woven into a pattern. We live in sturdy homes, and we have vehicles that transport us safely because of individuals who have shared their skills. Our contributions are valuable. SMOC gets it. Compassion, equity, community. Each segment is important for a balanced life in the community. Nicholas Walcott, our keynote speaker, is a dream keeper who will not turn back. He accepted the call of the clarion. Thank you, Mr. Walcott, for continuing and for coming to share your words of wisdom with us today. We are proud of you because you are a product of Framingham. You are a wonderful example of what you learned as you were nurtured by the elders. You spread your wings and traveled, yet you return to check in. I hope that everyone is ready to sit back, get inspired, and feel empowered to share in the contributions of Dr. King's dream. It is being redefined. It is not dead, but it does need some fresh sight and for each of us to make it work. Are you ready? Thank you very much. And now, Darlene.
You're muted, Darlene. You're doing a great job, but you're muted. So
Okay, thank you, Susan. That's why you're our leader. Keep us in check. Thank you to all here today's gathering for our second annual commemoration in recognition and remembrance of the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Observed annually, this marking its 38th year, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the only federal holiday designated as a day on rather than a day off, one that encourages action and service to our communities. Today, we take time to revisit the teachings of Dr. King, who pioneered a path for equality through relentless struggle and unwavering hope. To fully honor Dr. King, we must also pay tribute to Mrs. Coretta Scott King for her civil rights activism in the 1950s and 60s, for her role in the Montgomery bus boycott, her advocacy for the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965, and who led the movement for the creation of the King holiday. Next, we're going to watch a video featuring the music of Ashton Gleckman.
In what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. We will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
What's the name of our school? We need to listen to our hearts, right?
We should celebrate it because he deserved it. He risked his life for us to have a voice to speak up against racism.
Wow, that was moving. That was moving. I love that speech. Every year, it gets to my heart. So now I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker, Nicholas Walcott. Nicholas is a born and raised Framingham native, whom as a young child took part in the SMOC school-age childcare program. Nicholas' interest in social justice began at a young age when he authored a creative highlight of Black history accomplishments for the Greater Framingham Community Church, Martin Luther King Jr. Writing Contest. He would continue to grow and foster his passion for social justice by traveling to Guatemala, where he worked as a business strategy consultant supporting indigenous communities in reaching financial independence and business success. More recently, Nicholas has worked to empower future generations by mentoring high school age students, supporting them through their navigation of the college application process or development of post-high school plans. He currently serves as an innovation and design strategy consultant, working to help business solve problems through creative thinking. He also facilitated design thinking workshops for entrepreneurs whose products and service have a positive social impact in the world. Nicholas has always had a passion for connecting with others and uplifting and empowering underrepresented communities. We and I are so grateful to have him here today. I just want to welcome Nicholas Walcott.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Darlene, for that wonderful, lovely welcome and introduction. I remembered to turn off my mute, so I'm glad I'm off to a good start. I'd like to take a moment here to give a few thank yous and echo many of the thank yous that Susan had shared at the start. I'd like to thank Erin Young, your Diversity and Health Equity Officer, for allowing me to be a part of this celebration and for the work that she does daily, leading efforts to make SMOC a more equitable and inclusive organization. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, who manages to do their daily roles, as well as set aside time to think about how you all might keep social justice top of mind within the organization here. Susan Gentili, SMOC's President and Chief Executive Officer, who empowers you all to do the amazing and important work that you do each and every day. And most importantly, all of you. For joining, but more importantly, I understand community care and nonprofit work can often be a thankless job. I know that from folks that I've worked with within the nonprofit industry, that there are really tough days. And you may not hear this from those that you are serving each and every day. So thank you, thank you, thank you. What you all do for the community means more to them than you may realize, myself included, as I was lucky enough to be part of SMOC's childcare program, as Darlene mentioned, a caring and supportive environment. I'm sure that I didn't say thank you nearly enough or share how much I enjoyed being part of the SMOC program. SMOC provided me with a safe place to be and to play while my parents were at work, and for that I say thank you. Today we honor the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who had profound impact on American society and continues to shape the way that we think about equity and advocacy. I'm excited to share this time and space with you all to think about how we might honor the spirit of King through this year's theme, It Starts With Me. I love watching the video tribute of Dr. King. I know it always gives me chills. And what really resonated with me is the reiteration of some of his key teachings of love, nonviolence, and advocacy by highlighting famous snippets of the I Have a Dream speech and hearing the reflections of the children. As we celebrate this day, we are reminded that there is still much work to be done. I do hope that with all this work we continue to do, one day we are able to look back at his speech and say with confidence that we are free at last. So during our time together, I'd like to share some of my reflections on how I think about bringing social justice and good works to my daily life in all of the ordinary moments. As Darlene mentioned, for my job, I'm a design thinker, facilitator, designer, and so I really do enjoy collaboration, which I know it's hard to do in this setup here. However, there are a time or two, or kind of throughout the speech, if you want to add comments to the chat, I'd love to hear from you all. So to get us started off with some engagement, I would like to ask you all a quick question here. And I want you to add your responses to the chat. So when you think of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as well as social justice, what word or words come to mind here? So if you could Again, I'm dropping the question in the chat. If you want to add your thoughts, what are some words or a word that comes to mind for you all? All right, let's see the engagement. I'm seeing courage, hope, love, change, a lot of peace coming through, love and strength, bravery. Renee, I love it in all caps, sacrifice, equal opportunities, changed history. Love that. Empowerment, passion, new chances. Thank you so much for that engagement there. Um, I know often when we think of equity, advocacy, and social justice, many extraordinary images come to mind. As seen through the video, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat, or more recent examples like the hashtag #MeToo movement and climate justice efforts of those like Greta Thunberg. Maybe someone here in this crowd who does become a notable name in history, one of those big highlights, uh, but it really doesn't have to be the case in order to make a difference. It's my firm belief that each and every one of us is critical in helping carry the torch down the long path of civil rights and social justice. So over our time together, I'd like to share my thoughts on how each of us can have an impact and bring this year's theme, It Starts With Me, to life in your everyday. We'll talk about the power of individual acts, the ripple effect, and how your individual impact can have a broader effect on the community, as well as the power of community. MLK didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. So the theme, it starts with me. When I hear the theme, it really goes hand in hand with my belief that we all have the ability to make an impact. Someone that's made an impact on me when I was younger is our lovely host, Auntie Darlene. For those of you who may not know, Darlene's my godmother. And if you did know that, I'm almost 1,000% sure that she shared with you how she has the claim of fame of getting me to stop drinking from the baby bottle. So if you'd humor me here just for a moment, I want to share that story with you. We will take a step back to the early mid-90s. You might remember the days of overalls, crop tops, bandanas, butterfly clips, and think of a little baby Nick here. So as a little one, I required a lot of attention. I always wanted to be held and play with. Depending on who you ask today, they may say the same thing. So by no surprise, my parents decided that they needed a little getaway, and it might be a bit better if I was not included. So in comes Auntie Darlene. And my mom had packed up all my things, my clothes, diapers, toys, all the stuff, and had dropped me off with Auntie Darlene for a week. The evening comes around, she washes me up, had changed me, fed me, made sure I was all good to go before I'm laid down to rest. At least that's what she thought, because so I hear I was blood curdling screams as soon as she had left the room. So she comes back, makes sure, goes through the list. Is he, does he need change? Is he hungry? No, everything is good. So she lets me cry it off, and eventually I fall asleep. We have the same routine the next couple of days. And then hopefully by midweek, I was going to bed without a fuss. The end of the week, my mom comes and gets me, having freshly enjoyed her vacation, and brings me home and is unpacking all my things. As she's unpacking my baby bag, she notices way down deep, tucked in the bottom, were all my bottles. And so she gives Auntie a ring and says, "Hey, Darlene, I found Nicholas's bottles all stuck at the bottom of the bag. Didn't you need them all week?" And Auntie had replied, "He's still in the bottle? I guess not anymore because I didn't give him one the entire week." So you might ask, what does this silly little story have to do with our celebration today? In order to draw that connection, I want to start off by reflecting a little bit on, what's going on in the world today. We are experiencing conflict in human rights issues across the world in places like Ukraine, Israel, and Palestine, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and unfortunately many other places across the globe. Police brutality and racial injustice, as seen in the murders of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Philando Castile, and many other names, unfortunately. Gender inequity in women's rights issues, as seen through the overturning of Roe v. Wade and challenges accessing appropriate reproductive health care. Health inequities, as seen through the COVID pandemic that we are still facing today, and how healthcare disparities have left marginalized communities challenged to access adequate and timely healthcare. LGBTQIA plus rights being challenged and seen in the violent attacks against trans people, and hundreds of anti-LGBTQIA legislation being introduced across the country. And unfortunately, many other issues. I don't know about you, but when I turn on the news, I'm often overwhelmed by the state of the world. Many of the current events disproportionately affect communities of color. These issues are deeply affecting the populations that you serve each day, and I'm sure are top of mind for all of you. Heavy. It can feel like an ocean of hate and division, and that we're all desperately grabbing for a lifeline. It can feel insurmountable. Just like for me as a baby, it felt impossible to go to bed without having a bottle. And you may think about the blood-curdling screams that I had as Auntie Darlene tried to put me to bed. And by no means do I mean to bring light to the challenges that we're facing today, but I really want to demonstrate that there are often times when things seem overwhelming and impossible to overcome, but it's through small changes that we are able to make a difference. It was a simple action of Auntie Darlene not giving me a bottle, whether on purpose or not, that's up for debate, that got me to the next development stage. And I'm sure it helped out my parents a lot too. If we can apply that idea to today's challenges, just imagine what a small change that you can make, whether at work or within your community, to move forward the ideals of Dr. King. In our acts to make change, we must be courageous. As a society, we're in the process of unlearning hundreds and hundreds of years of institutional hate and oppression, unpacking things that we may have unconsciously been doing our entire lives. During this time, we're bound to make mistakes, and that's okay. What is most important is that we're committed to continuous growth and learning. You may practice social justice in your life by expanding your perspective, maybe reading history from the perspectives of underrepresented minorities, mentoring people within your community, adding closed captions to all of your meetings to make them more accessible, like Erin has done today, or change your vocabulary to be more inclusive. Whatever you do, it's best to do something in kindness, even when you make a mistake, than to do nothing at all. For example, myself included, when I was thinking about the speech and writing the speech, when I was looking particularly at the section where I was talking about these challenging themes we're facing, I struggled on what words to use when talking about Roe v. Wade. Do I say that it's something that impacts women? But then is that excluding trans men who have the ability to have children? Or do I say people who give birth? Or do I say ovary or uterus owners? Right or wrong, I went with the word women because it was important for me to include in my conversation instead of worrying about what I said as the right or wrong word. We've talked about taking a step of making a first action, whatever it may be. Those actions or steps that you take will grow through the ripple effect. The ripple effects can be described as, I'm going to go with some, dictionary definitions here just to level set, but the continuing or spreading results of an event in the Oxford Dictionary, or as a spreading, pervasive, and usually unintentional effect or influence, as found in Merriam-Webster. So there are a few words that really stuck out to me here in these definitions. Spreading, pervasive, and unintentional. Here in these definitions is the idea that one event, regardless of how large it is or how small it is, has an effect that expands beyond itself, grows to become something much larger than we might have ever thought of or expected. Oftentimes, this phenomenon is visually represented as a single drop hitting a pool of water, and you see those expanding circles that continue to grow over time. But what does that mean for one of our interactions, right, in the real world? Oftentimes, it's challenging to think about because, unfortunately, we'll never see where our individual acts lead into the grander scheme of things. You know, as seen through that word in the definition, unintentional, right? So when I was in school, in college, or sorry, when I was in high school thinking about college, getting ready to take the SATs, looking at application essays, thinking about what schools to apply to, many things that I'm sure, folks here in the audience have done or have seen through, their children, nieces or nephews, family, friends, so on. In the fall of my junior year, I was preparing for the SATs, the college entrance exams, and I met Anna and Mari. Anna and Mari were two women at Wellesley College, and part of their volunteer program for every Tuesday and Thursday, they would make that drive from Wellesley up to Framingham to FHS to meet with a group of us. I think it was about 10 or 15 high school students, mostly women and people of color. And during those 8 weeks, Anna and Mari spent time instilling in us and helping us practice those skills of the writing, reading, different types of math, those foundational skills that we would be practicing and using within the SATs. So by the time the exams came around, I felt very prepared, and I think I did quite well for myself. It was the first time that I was navigating the college process and didn't have any older siblings to lean on who maybe had been through the process before. So Anna and Mari really made an impact on me and made a difference in my college journey. So much so that years later, even far after college, I got involved in mentoring high school students and helping them with their college journeys. I don't imagine that Mari and Anna had any idea the number of students that they would truly impact in, the Framingham community as well as many others. I think about myself, even if I was the only person among those 10 or 15 people who went on to help others, we could, extrapolate that Anna and Mari's interaction in those 15 students led to, you know, more than 50 students being supported when you think about the students who took part in the tutoring program, as well as the students that I've gone on to support. And then who knows even how much the students that I've supported have then gone on to impact their communities. I've been lucky in that I have been able to see that some of my students that I've mentored have gone on to support their communities and have volunteered throughout college. So that initial drop of Anna and Mari supporting those few students in Framingham had rippled into the next circle of me supporting students within the Boston public school system, which has then later rippled into broader communities as my students I've been able to see have gone on and become mentors themselves. Although I'll never understand how Mari's or my actions are fully transformed as it passes through different communities, I'm honored that I was able to see a portion of the journey and the impact. For each of our actions, we will have impacts that expand far beyond our communities. And with Dr. Martin Luther King's spirit at the center of our actions, we can help amplify social justice and advocacy throughout all the communities. So the quick recap so far, we've talked about the power of individual acts and how seemingly small interactions can have much larger impacts, the ripple effect, and how your individual acts can impact a broader community far beyond your initial interaction. So now let's talk about the power of community. King was an exceptional leader, and there is no doubt about that. However, he relied heavily on the power of community and collective action to bring about transformative change. When you think about the March of Washington for Jobs and Freedom, the Birmingham bus boycott, many other critical key moments in the civil rights movement, it would truly be impossible for just one person to achieve all of that on their own. One way that I've seen community power come to life in my day-to-day is through employee resource groups at my company. During key moments in the Black Lives Matter movement, like the I Can't Breathe demonstration in response to the murders of Eric Garner and George Floyd, the Black Employee Resource Group came together to hold community and to act. Despite the pandemic, our group still came together by creating virtual group spaces for listening and reflection, and to truly support each other through the challenging times. We used the time together to think about what we could do as a collective group to support the anti-racism efforts. The collective action led to a great amount of community and community care for all of us who had been impacted by the current events, and also allowed for us to create resources that we would share with others to help them understand the experiences of peoples of color, and also to prompt reflection on how they can make a difference. As the proverb says, many hands make light work. As I bring my thoughts to a close here, I wanted to remind you all of some of the key themes that I'd like us all to continue to reflect on. Creating change can feel very overwhelming, and yet it only takes one person, one act to make a difference. Each of your acts of advocacy and kindness will expand far beyond itself through the power of ripple effects in community. It starts with me, but it grows with we. Together we can collaborate and support each other to achieve much more. Days like this, and Martin Luther King Day itself, I think are so important and so wonderful. They bring us together as a collective community to reflect on the past and inspire us to blaze a new path forward. Before we leave, I want to challenge you all, each and every one of you, to make an impact following this celebration. Remember, it doesn't have to be revolutionary. Again, we're not going to single-handedly eradicate racism on our own. But it can start with our own individual actions, creating a ripple effect throughout our communities to drive engagement and change. So I want to take a moment to galvanize some of that action. If you could take a few moments to reflect to yourself, think about some of the points and comments that have been made throughout our introductions, the video that was shared, opening remarks from Susan and Yvonne. Really kind of reflect and marinate on those. And think about what is one thing that you can do. It can be as small as checking in on someone in your community who's being impacted by the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Or maybe it's something a bit more involved, like volunteering at the local Boys and Girls Club. When you have that idea, I want you to drop it here in the chat again. So take a moment, reflect. I've added the question here if you'd like to see it again. But really thinking about this theme of It Starts With Me. What are you personally going to do committing and commit to following this celebration to promote equity, social justice, and advocacy in your life? And remember, there's no wrong answers. This is a safe space. And again, we all make mistakes, so don't be scared about that either, as I had mentioned in my speech. Okay, thank you so much for our first brave answer here, Erin. Reading about legislation impacting the LGBTQIA population. Voting, I love that. Connecting with our neighbors and friends who have been impacted by Israel-Hamas war as well as the Ukrainian war. Challenging yourself to see what have you done each day and what's action can we do to help others. Network. I love that. Not closing my eyes to injustices around me, speaking up. I'm gonna wait another minute here. I know this is a challenging ask to think about it, and I'm sure folks will continue to reflect on this after the session as well. Yes, getting active in the election. I love to see that. Asking difficult questions, having those conversations, continues to learn and educating yourself. Lisa, I love that comment there, having a dialogue. Being open about being wrong and being corrected. I love that. I'm sure answers will continue to drop in here, but what I've seen so far is, again, from the responses, challenging ourselves to make that change, continuous learning and education, being open to making mistakes, but still doing something to make an impact every day that we can. And I love it. Again, comments that are ranging from thinking about those small actions of just having, a conversation to maybe things that are a little bit more involved, such as, working as part of the upcoming elections. So I'm sure that, again, ideas will continue to flow. And I just wanted to echo something that I typically say also as part of my job when I think about the workshops that we have, that it's very easy to feel inspired in this moment or another workshop or anytime there is an event happening, right? Like you think of when the folks were hitting the streets for Breonna Taylor or many others, or when folks are organizing to vote. I think what's really hard is after the event, right? So when you head back to your desk or you get back to a Monday and you are faced with the day-to-day, like how do we truly keep that momentum moving? So following this experience, I really want you all to continue to reflect on the themes that we've discussed today, as well as think about, how are you going to change to make an impact next week when you have the Monday blues, or a month from now, or even a year from now when we are coming together for the third annual SMOC Martin Luther King Day celebration and commemoration. Um, you know, what will you have done in order to honor Martin Luther King Jr. and promote social justice that had started with you? So I would like to say thank you all for your participation and engagement. I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing some of the actions and how you're going to move things forward. It has truly been an honor and a pleasure to share this time with you. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of the celebration.
Thank you, Nicholas. Well done. I don't know if I can continue after that. So to continue on, that was very heartfelt, Nicholas. You did great. Next, we are going to hear from Joseph Sawyer, who will perform a vocal arrangement of If I Can Help Somebody, written by Alma Androza and famously performed by Mahalia Jackson. While referencing Christianity, this song transcends beyond religious affiliation and carries a powerful message of compassion, kindness, and the impact that a small act of goodwill can have on someone's life. It serves as a reminder that each of us has the ability to make a positive difference in the world. Vern L. Howard, chair of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Commission, has stated that the song resonated with Dr. King. It was something that was deep in his heart. It stirred his soul. So, Joe.
Thank you, darling. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can show somebody they are traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Oh, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian heart, if I can bring back beauty to a world abroad, if I can spread God's message as the master taught, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Oh, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not, oh, my living shall not be, then my living shall not be in vain. Thank you.
Wow. Joe, that was beautiful. That was absolutely, got my heart. That was absolutely beautiful. And it moved all of us in different ways. Just trying to get back from hearing that song. In the song, we hear those words, if I can help somebody. And from Nicholas, we learned about the ways in which we all can take action for one another and for our communities. We have the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. in us all. King was the driving force behind efforts to achieve social and racial equality. And I, you, and we continue that legacy today and every day. Thank you to our keynote speaker, Nicholas Walcott, to our vocalist, Joseph Sawyer, and thank you to each of you for being here today in remembrance, in honor, and in commitment to keep taking action for equity, for justice, for safety, for belonging. Thank you, everyone.